I'm going to count down my top 10 favorite uses of the GoPro in the past year. Before we get to that though, I want to talk briefly about some of the gear that has helped me make these photos and videos that we're going to talk about as I count down my top 10. But I have owned this GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black Edition now for just over a year. And you know, I was really curious buying it. I wanted one. But I knew that I didn't lead that kind of exciting GoPro life where I'd be ski jumping, cliff jumping, skydiving, wingsuit gliding. I don't do those things. So I was curious to see how I would use this camera, what uses I would find for it. And so I want to share these with you and tell you up front that I just said I don't do those really exciting things. So there aren't amazing, exciting things in here. But what I do think there are some ideas for you all to generate and say whether or not this is a camera you should own, or if you already own one, some fun things that you might find that you can do with it. Let's touch on some of the gear that I've used over the last year. First off, I want to start with the little GoPro remote to tell you that I have actually never used this, and one time I really wish I had. Anytime that I want to talk to the GoPro, I just use my phone or tablet, and that has worked fine for me. But again, I can see why more adventurous people would want to use this, and when we get to my number one, tell you why I'm really sorry I didn't have it with me at that time. But because I haven't hardly ever used this, I will say that I think right now the GoPro Hero 3 Plus Silver Edition is the absolute best buy. That price has dropped to $250. It has all of the features of the GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black that I have used over the last year. It doesn't have the 4K at 15 frames a second, but I've never really used that here because it's only 15 frames a second. It's a little silly. It does, however, have Wi-Fi. It still has that full 12 megapixel resolution. You can, of course, step up to the Hero 4 Black Edition or the Hero 4 Silver Edition. Black, of course, is a little bit better, a little bit more manual control, but honestly, I'm not seeing a huge difference in quality. The 4 Silver Edition gives you that nice touchscreen back, but you are a bigger, you're carrying around a bigger beast and you're spending a lot more. So again, for $250, I think that Hero 3 Plus Silver is just a perfect price point right now. I'll put links to that along with everything else I'm talking about. So if you're looking for GoPro accessories and fun things to put under your tree or in your holiday stocking or wherever you give or get presents, those links will be right down below. Something I picked up fairly towards the end of the year, but I found to be absolutely excellent, is this little Joby tripod with magnetic feet. It is strong enough to hold the GoPro up when you have the little tripod mount that you're using with it. And any metallic or magnetic surface you find becomes a stable platform for this tripod. Car hoods, lamp posts, iron railings, all of those things will allow you to set the GoPro up, and works really nicely. It's so small, this thing has been going everywhere my GoPro has with me. Prior to that, I was just using this little Pedco ultralight tripod. This actually does come with a Velcro strap as well that would allow you to strap it to a tree limb or some other object, but not quite as versatile as this little guy here. But it is almost as light and works really well. A couple of stuff from bicycles I've shot. This Minoura mount has been my favorite by far. It is solid machine aluminum, I think. Feels really beefy in the hand. It's really good, and the times I've used it on my bicycle, I have not felt like the GoPro is going anywhere or in danger of going anywhere. So that works really well, really nicely as well. There's been some filters. Polar Pro passed me these filters last year, and I have used them a good bit. They're a lot of fun. I have a neutral density filter, which simply cuts down the amount of light to your GoPro. Now, this, I've got a couple of different cases because of this, but one of the benefits of the Hero 4 is, as I said, more manual control of your settings in the camera. Shutter speed, your ISO, things like that. With a fairly recent firmware update with the Hero 3 Plus, it's actually not that recent, you have some control over your ISO. You can set a maximum ISO. And so by using this and setting your maximum ISO to be pretty low, you can get some neat motion blur effects that give your videos or your time-lapse images just a little bit more of a dynamic look to them. And so this fits on one of the cases. Different ones fit on different cases, so I've ended up with a couple of different cases. So that's the neutral density filter. Also have used a macro filter, and this has been a lot of fun. It doesn't work well underwater. I've tried it underwater a couple of times, but it does work well above water. And again, it just gives you just a little bit more magnification, and I use that for a really long flowering time lapse, which we'll see here in a few minutes. And then I've got some circular polarizers as well, which again for time-lapse video, this is a really time-lapse images that get turned into a video. Circular polarizers are a wonderful way to really bring out the blue in the sky, the green in the foliage, cut down on your reflections, and just give you a really much more dynamic look that is not recreatable in post-processing. You can sometimes get close, but the true look that a circular polarizer gives you is not available, and so by throwing one of those on a little GoPro, it's quite nice. Now, probably one of the most wonderful things that I've picked up most recently is the extended batteries by Wasabi. The most frustrating thing about the GoPro is battery life. There have been numerous times where I've picked one up and ready to do something and it's dead. Maybe I left it on, maybe it was getting close to being dead before and just decided to die in the day or two it was sitting around. Right away, days after I bought the GoPro, I bought the Wasabi batteries, so I have spares. I have 3 total batteries now. They're good, but then you still have the hassle of switching batteries, and especially for some of the skiing videos you'll see, in the colder conditions, battery life was really, really short. We're talking less than an hour when you're trying to film higher quality video in cold situations, and you want that Wi-Fi on sometimes to see what you're getting. Sometimes as short as 30 minutes, yes. Now, this extended battery, I haven't finished my scientific tests, but I can say it significantly increases your battery life. They claim 5 hours of 1080p 30 frames a second, and I've heard reviews and heard from other people that they are getting that. So it is a fantastic thing. It does make the camera a little bit bigger, but for my uses, I don't really care. I will sacrifice a little bit of size and weight, or gain a little bit of size and weight to really gain that significant battery life. It also comes along with this really nice dual USB charger. GoPro sells their own dual USB charger, but for $40 you get the extended battery, you get the dual charger which can charge the regular batteries along with this big one, little USB cord, and then you get a bunch of different back doors to use with the Hero 3 and the 3 Plus cases, both skeleton and waterproof. So it's really nice that that is all there and really useful. Like that. I actually, because of the different cases and I wanted to use this macro filter, I ended up dremeling one of my cases to run USB power in for that flowering time lapse, and so I had that running for 5 days. Now for part of that time I was using a USB battery, one of these RAV power ones that you can use to keep your phone charged, connected to my microphone right now, and this can run the GoPro easily for a day, full day, and that has been fantastic and I really like that. But this of course is a lot more portable, and when you throw the waterproof battery door on, you can go underwater and not worry about running out. I mentioned the little tripod mount, very useful for mounting on all kinds of tripods, and along with that is this little flash hot shoe adapter, which allows you to slide this into your hot shoe, and then you can mount your GoPro on top. I haven't used that quite as much as I had thought I would, but I have used it on occasion and it's been useful. That little adapter is also great for throwing microphones on top, ones that aren't typically put on top of the camera, like the Zoom H4n, and some other ones as well. I also have the chest harness system, which I have not used a ton either, but for bike rides it gives a nice vantage point, and I have some pictures I'll share with that. And of course the head strap mount as well, which is a lot of fun. And it's kind of fun to put this on kids' heads too, to see the world from their perspective and what they do. But I'll tell you what, they move a lot, and so you get a lot of jerky video, and even after post-stabilization it's not always so much fun to watch, but they can still enjoy watching it. So that was all of this bits, and as I said, I'll put links down below if you're looking for accessories. I'd love to hear from you what your favorite GoPro accessory is. Well, one thing I don't have on this table is a monopod, and that's not typically just a GoPro accessory, but a decent monopod that has a good reach to it, and they do make selfie sticks and extension sticks as well that does the same thing, but allows you to get that GoPro out away from you and gives you more of the scene. So I've used that, and you'll see some of those in this list as well. But yeah, leave your favorite GoPro accessories or what's at the top of your GoPro wish list. I'll actually be giving away one of these Wasabi batteries very soon. So if you're not a subscriber, you might want to subscribe, and you might want to watch a future podcast. Those podcasts usually come out on Friday or Saturday each week. And, well, I'll just say you might want to watch them if you're interested in this GoPro extended battery. Now, my top 10 things I did with the GoPro this past year. Well, starting with something that isn't terribly exciting, but it's just the fact that this little camera is a decent camera and can be used to take pictures in all kinds of places. In its waterproof housing, it is of course completely waterproof, and so you don't have to be underwater, but you can be out in the ocean, in the waves, and not worrying about what's going to happen to it. It's also small enough and portable enough and easy enough to hold on to, especially with the wrist straps and things of that sort, that you don't have to worry about getting clobbered by a wave and losing it. I have a waterproof case system for my DSLR. I've been out in waves with it, but it's really quite nerve-wracking and not something that I would recommend. And so this little GoPro is really easy and really fun to take with you in a variety of places. I mentioned using the monopod for selfies in this kind of 360 fashion, which mostly on this California trip this past year. I was on the West Coast actually for Christmas in January for part of that. And it was just kind of fun to showcase these different places that I was. And you know, both these could be put into little animated GIFs and shared out, or just made into a video file, or just a series of pictures that you look at. Also, because this camera is so small, so light, and easily goes along with you, you can take it, of course, while you are doing things like riding your bike to get kind of cooler shots, including this one where, as I mentioned, I use that neutral density filter to give a little bit more motion, a little bit more impact to the picture. And also, you can take pictures underwater, and ones that aren't quite just normal selfie photos. The next item on my list is very similar to the first, except instead of photos, videos. This is the #1 selling camcorder or video camera in the world. And again, same idea. In its waterproof case, you can take it anywhere. It's incredibly easy to operate in or under the water. I will let you know, though, that there have been a couple of times where I had hoped to be able to stick the camera under the water while seeing what it was seeing via Wi-Fi on my phone. That won't work. Water completely absorbs that 2.4 gigahertz spectrum that the GoPro uses for its Wi-Fi, and as soon as the camera is fully submerged or just below the surface, you will lose contact with it. So just be warned of that. It's not a huge bummer, but it is an issue. As I mentioned, it's a very capable camera, and there have been times where I've used it as a behind-the-scenes camera or a camera B or B-roll for my footage and videos for this channel, and it's worked quite nicely. I've got a video that showcases the different fields of view for the GoPro and the resolutions and gives you some ideas of what may work best for you, because certainly that wide angle up close does not look best. But it is a very capable camera, and it's really nice to be able to switch to that footage from time to time. Would I want this to be my only camera? I've been asked this as a travel camera around the world. Probably not, because of your limitations of no screen on the back, unless you're going to go with that new silver or get the touch LCD back that they sell, or the LCD back. I think there are better, smaller options with better battery life for you as your only travel camera, but it is certainly a nice complement to whatever you have, because it can go anywhere with you and has very good quality. I love to do time lapses, and I often get asked when I'm doing time lapses with my DSLR, aren't I worried about wearing out the shutter? And for the most part, no, I'm not. But it certainly is nice to be able to shoot time lapses with a GoPro and not worry about wearing out any shutters. It's all completely electronic system in there. And I have shot a huge number of images with the GoPro this year because simply I've used it as this time-lapse machine. Everything from your scenic time lapses to something a little bit more fun like a hike. Why not shoot it as video? Well, you're going to end up with a lot of gigabytes of files that aren't very exciting, and the time-lapse gives you kind of a different perspective, a neat way to see who might be a straggler behind everybody else. You know, you're not limited to serious scenic time-lapses when you're using this. I've done board games. Here's an example of two kids playing a giant game of checkers. I just simply threw it on the little Joby tripod I mentioned, set it on a metal railing, and let it run. Here's the flower time-lapse I mentioned. I learned a lot from this time-lapse. One is make sure that all windows in the area are closed, because there's a lot of movement in the flower, a lot of twitchiness that came from the wind blowing in and out. And also, watch your power source. Use a reliable one. I had this plugged directly into the wall through your standard little plug with USB that you would usually use to charge a phone. It died a couple days in, and so I missed some of the best blooming of this flower. But overall, I think it was interesting. I used that macro filter, macro lens from Polar Pro filters as well. And I'm looking forward to doing something similar again next year when we've got more flowers blooming. Other longer ones, melting snow. And then this one, which was a lot of fun. I wish I'd let it run a little bit longer or had a little bit more time there. But again, just threw it in its waterproof case on a little tripod mount and put it in the water as the tide was coming in. From static time lapses to motion lapses. Time lapses when the camera is on something that is moving. Maybe a grocery cart, silly, but you know, I had it. I wanted to see what that looked like from that perspective. I think it would be fun to have another one that pointed into the cart and then have a split screen view as the cart slowly filled up, only if we were doing a really big shopping trip. Bike rides, again, you could shoot video, but you're going to end up with a lot of gigabytes, and a bike ride is fun. Time-lapse is a fun way to show bike rides. And then a lot of drive lapses. Some of the better ones is the Coastal Highway of California that we did in January, and then more recently in October when we were in Italy, hooked this up on the front bus window as we were driving along the Amalfi Coast. For those who don't know, the Amalfi Coast is just a beautiful stretch and getting towards southern Italy and right along the ocean. Or the sea, sorry, and just absolutely twisty, windy roads, very narrow at points, and so it was really interesting to see. And again, because during this time lapse, the camera is just taking a full resolution picture every X number of seconds, or half seconds, depending on how you've set it, you're getting a full image. And I was able to go back through some of these Amalfi scenes and pull out good images to share out with the world that were taken as the camera was just attached up there and making these images. This is a little silly, but I wanted to include it in the list because, well, it's a little silly. And sometimes I am. So I was at one of those sushi restaurants that puts the sushi on a conveyor belt for you to pick up as it comes by. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to see what the sushi sees? And so I talked to the chef and asked him if he would take it like he had just made sushi and put it on the conveyor belt for a trip around to me. Now, there's a lot of this that is unexciting, but then in talking with the waitress, I thought it might be fun to let it go all the way around. And the expressions as it passes the other diners at the sushi restaurant are fun to watch, because usually it's a plate after plate of sushi, and suddenly here comes a little GoPro blinking steadily at them. And so that part was fun. And again, it needs a lot of editing. If you've watched the unedited portion, I showed it to Christina and she did a big yawn because there's a lot of downtime. But with careful editing, and that is what the GoPro folks do, by the way, they do a ton of editing to make these videos look good and to be nice and condensed and concise. And then, it's somewhat interesting. Getting a little bit more action-oriented, but really this was mostly for kids and adults as well. We shot a wedding this past spring at a camp, and they happened to have a zip line, and so the next morning I had a chance to go on the zip line, and I thought, hey, I've got the GoPro, and along on the zip line it went with me. I mentioned skiing and short battery life. This was a lot of fun to take along with me skiing. Because one, also I could attach it to a ski pole or a monopod and get nice selfies or video of me skiing. as well, and as Christina was learning to ski, it's fun to look back on those videos as well. And again, really easy to use, and easy to use with gloves on and not worrying about if I wiped out and landed in the snow, because again, it's in its waterproof case. Technically, this one is not my GoPro, but it is the same GoPro I own, and it was my micro SD card in there, so I'm including it on my list because it was an amazing experience. And that was flying David McKay's drone while I was in Italy on the McKay Academy photography trip. This was a lot of fun, and if you have a GoPro, a drone should be on your list that can hold one, because it is just an amazing experience to get this bird's eye view and to get both still images and video capabilities from wherever you want, way up in the sky. And finally, the last item on my list that I think is truly GoPro worthy and what most people have in mind when they're buying a GoPro, I had an opportunity last January to go paragliding. Now, this was a fantastic opportunity, way less scary than I thought it was going to be. It was also a surprise present from my brother. And I had my GoPro along with me on this trip, but I hadn't brought all of the different mounts and things like that. One of the really nice things about the GoPro is it's so ubiquitous. They have mounts and bits all over the place. And, you know, a lot of people who go paragliding use them, and so they were the place was easily able to find me a helmet with a mount on it, and I was able to slide my GoPro in there and then get this footage of this really neat experience. Now, I mentioned back at the beginning really wishing that I had had the remote along with me because I did not want to bring my cell phone. I actually was not sure if the GoPro was on top of my head or not. I thought I'd pressed on, and so it missed the takeoff, which was probably one of the most exciting points of the whole experience, because you run along this grassy lawn and then all of a sudden off a cliff. And it was awesome, but I don't have any of that on camera. So, you know, again, the remote would certainly have been something I'd felt safe carrying, because one, if I drop it, it's not the end of the world. Two, it's small enough that I can easily hold on to it, and I would be able to tell at a glance whether or not the camera was recording. So there is some use for that, but as I said, that was the only time in the last year that I've owned this GoPro that I wished that I had used it. There you have it, my countdown of the 10 items I've used the GoPro for this past year. As I said, I want to hear your accessories, your favorite accessories, or what's on your wish list for your GoPro, or what has been the most fun thing that you've done with a GoPro, or if you've got one, what would be the most fun thing you would do? Leave comments right down below. If you found this video useful, helpful, hit the thumbs up button. I don't talk about GoPros that often, but I do give you lots of tips, tricks, and advice for generally taking better photos, videos with any camera, including a GoPro. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching this. Goodbye. Don't let it hit the floor. Ready? Got it nice and tight?
I'm ready. Ow.
Huh?